Quick announcement for everyone. I've been told that live streaming begins promptly at 9 o'clock. So whatever conversations you're having will be heard by whoever's watching the live stream. Just wanted to alert you to that. We'll start the meeting officially in just a few minutes. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to open and officially convene this meeting of the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, our first session of the 2022 legislative year. And I'm going to, now that I've called this meeting to order, my first order of business is to discuss what otherwise might become the elephant in the room if I don't mention it. Those of you who know me will detect that I have a frog in my throat. I do have a cold. However, I have had 2 negative COVID tests in the past 36 hours and 4 negative COVID tests in the past week. I will be wearing a mask when I'm not talking in front of the microphone, but other than that, I will not wear a mask. When I'm talking here, I will not wear a mask. If you need to approach me to discuss something, please give me a second to put my mask on before you get too close. I'm very concerned and sensitive to the need for everyone's health and safety to be protected, and I will do everything I can to do that. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's begin our meeting by all rising for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by the doyenne of our committee, Representative Jackie Kelly Pitts. Thank you, Representative. The first item on the agenda is a quick presentation on the live stream situation here in the room and all the equipment in the room. I've asked Kristen Grant, our committee researcher, to give us a quick 1 or 2 minute overview of the live streaming session. You'll notice that there are microphones, there are speakers, and there are cameras in this room. And Kristen will give us a quick overview, and then you can ask Kristen questions if you have any. So, okay, as soon as Kristen gets her notes, we'll begin. So thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, as Chairman Bose mentioned, the stream has started. We don't have to do anything to make that happen. The guys, you know what, I'm by myself, I can do this. The team up in media, they're starting the stream remotely, and they're gonna start it at, whenever the meeting is supposed to convene. If there's a problem, they'll hopefully handle it. If we know of a problem, I'll try to let them know. If you decide to caucus, I'll try to let them know so they can cut the feed, because nobody needs to watch that. because it's a service that we're providing, if the feed goes down, the meeting can continue. There's no need to stop it. Otherwise, it's really just because people can still come into the room. So that's basically what we're being told. It's a service, so if it crashes, it's unfortunate, but it's not going to cause us any concerns here. The microphones are not only to give the feed to the stream, audio feed to the stream, but also for amplification because of the what we call the R2D2s that are cleaning the air, make it hard to hear anybody. And if we're speaking with masks on, that's even more of a potential issue. The microphones are set, or should be set, I asked them last night, to allow up to 4 people to be live at once. And by that I mean if 4 people try to turn on their mics, they should all be allowed to speak, but if a 5th person turns on their mic, their light will be a blinking green, and they will be next in the queue, but they won't be amplified until somebody turns off their mic. So it's critical for amplification and for the feed that when you're done speaking, you push the button and turn off your mic. So it's been sort of, it's like when we were remote, when you were remote, I wasn't here yet, when one was remote and you wanted to be on mute all the time so that the random sounds of your household didn't come through accidentally. Same thing here, except it's only one at a time. And Chairman Vos can mute us all with the button. You have 2 buttons, and you may already know this, I'm not sure. You have 2 buttons. One is obviously the guy talking, that's to speak. The other, I believe, can shut everybody off. So, yeah, see if that works. I don't remember what the picture is. There's one with a face. Okay, I'll keep talking and we'll see what happens. If you can you mute me? If you, let's see, one.
Now I know which one turns you off.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
that's fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you'll see, it's kind of counterintuitive to me, but red means you're all set. Green means you're not going to be amplified. Green and blinking means you're next, but you're still not going to be amplified. I don't know if anybody wants to, do you want 2 more people want to turn them on? So you, McWilliams, could speak, and okay, so Representative Somsich would be, how many do we have? So we have 4 here, and now Representative Plett turned his off, so now you're live, Representative Somsich. So, yeah.
When it's red, we're live, is that?
When it's red, you're live. And Representative Vos, you asked about the sensitivity, and I'm not sure how to exactly measure that, but the John upstairs said, pretty much just assume that people can hear you, when you're talking, but also be as close as necessary. So basically, turn off your mic if you don't want people to hear what you're saying.
Could you go over how to turn it off again?
Absolutely. Sorry, I did it to demonstrate, but I didn't say what I was doing. If it's white, it's off. Correct. Yep, so push the same button to turn it on and to turn it off. Yep.
Okay, Kristen, am I also detecting that there is a speaker built into the base of this microphone?
I think so. And you're also hearing, well, these monitors are pointing this way, but yes, can you hear yourselves? Because I'm right next to the monitors, so I can't tell where I'm hearing this from. But are you hearing yourself and me from in front of you? That must be, yeah, I think that's what that is. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, well, Kristen, thank you. That was a better overview than I was actually expecting.
Oh,
But,
thanks.
you-
Any other questions, just let me know,
Yeah,
yeah.
does anybody have a question for Kristen about the live streams? I have a question.
Okay.
What if one of our members gets a text from one of their constituents, and the text says, I can't hear the live stream or I can't see it or something,
Oh.
what recourse do we have to give them to notify the media people that there's a problem?
I don't know if they have a way to connect directly with them, so I would say if I'm here, let me know and I'll tell media, or I should be here, or if I'm not here, I'll be around, but you can contact me or contact community services and we'll let them know. If there is a direct contact that I can get, I'll give that to all of you. So that'll be one of the things I follow up on to find out.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
Any additional questions for Kristen? Did I hear someone call my name? No?
No.
Okay, thank you,
All right.
Kristen.
And does everybody have their, oh, you just got yours, their name tags, their nameplates and their folders? Oh, yes, we're still waiting for yours, sorry. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Okay. So the next item on my agenda was just a quick discussion of microphone etiquette. And what I wanted to remind everybody was that when you're speaking and then you finish speaking, you should turn your microphone off. If you don't get in the habit of doing that, one of these days you're going to forget to turn it off, and then you're going to say something that maybe you don't want the rest of the world to hear. So try to get in the habit of turning your microphone off as soon as you're done speaking. And of course, the other part of that is be extremely careful that whatever you say might be picked up by the live streaming equipment in this room. So if it's not something you want repeated, if it's not something you want to see in print, be careful with what you say. Okay, we don't have very good attendance so far this morning, which is a bit disappointing, but it is an extremely cold day and travel is probably a little difficult for some people. But what I would like to do next, since it's been a long time since we've gotten together in the same room, I would like to initiate committee reintroductions. So I'd like to go around the room and have every person reintroduce themselves. Please tell us your name, what district you represent, and if you choose to, it's optional, but if you choose to, you can say something about why you're here, what you hope to accomplish. So let's start with Representative Mann, one of the senior members of our committee, back in the back left of the room from my point of view. So Representative Mann, get us going.
Okay, well, I'm Representative Mann, John Mann from Elstead, New Hampshire, which is where I live, and I represent Cheshire County District 2. And I guess I'm interested in pretty much anything related to energy. That's it.
I'm Representative Partial from Cheshire District 10, proudly serving Marlborough and Troy, New Hampshire. And I'm honored in doing so in order to serve the best interests of my constituents, whatever they may be. Thank you.
Representative Partial, thank you. I lived in Troy when I went to high school, so you're probably representing people that I know.
There's some good people there. I'm glad.
Representative Bernardi.
Yes, Representative J.D. Bernardi, Rockingham 16, which is Southampton, East Kingston, and Kensington, here to support my constituents.
My name is Representative Lex Berezny. I represent Grafton District 9, which includes Grafton, Ashland, Bristol, and Bridgewater. And I'm here representing my constituents.
Representative Berezny, you might want to move your mic just a little bit closer. It did pick you up, but you might be a little hard to hear that far away. Representative Floget.
Good morning. I'm Tom Plochet, Belknap 1. I represent the citizens and residents of New Hampton and Center Harbor. I'm from Center Harbor.
Yes, good morning. I'm Peter Somsich. I represent Rockingham County District 27, Portsmouth Ward 3. And I think as with a science background, I've always been attracted to various energy-related issues. So I'm glad to be here and be of service to the voters of my district.
Thank you, Peter. Just to repeat, I'm Representative Michael Vose. I represent Rockingham District 9, the town of Epping. And this is my 4th term in the legislature, and all 4 terms I've served on this committee, proudly served on this committee.
I'm shouting in that thing. I'm Representative Fred Plett from Goffstown, New Hampshire. My life has been in the utilities industry, 23 years with Public Service New Hampshire. Then I went from there to a manufacturer, to EPRI research entity, to a computer consulting outfit from UK, Logica. And with some other steps, the last 10 years of my working career was as a consumer advocate for the Mass Attorney General. So I've been on every side of the industry.
I'm Representative Janine Nodder. I'm from the town of Merrimack. I'm the House Majority Whip. Our late speaker, Dick Hinch, placed me on this committee 4 terms ago. I didn't know why at the time, but I've since learned that I really am fascinated with energy.
I'm Representative Nick White. I'm from Merrimack District 20. That's Chichester and Pembroke. And I have primarily a technology background, telecommunications, wireless technology, internet service, things like that.
I'm Representative John Lewicki. I represent Hillsborough 26, which is the towns of Brookline and Mason. My background is in technology. I've worked a lot of startups in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and also with some bigger companies over time. But I've moved around a lot and put computer microprocessors in a lot of different things.
Good morning. Welcome to Concord, and you are in my district. I'm Representative Rebecca McWilliams, and I serve the west side of Concord, including downtown. So happy to host you. My background is I'm both an architect and an attorney. I'm very interested in construction, energy efficiency, and building envelope solutions. I'm also here to represent my kids. I have 4-year-old twins and a 1-year-old. So I'm here looking to the future and seeing what I can do to make New Hampshire better for our next generation.
Thank you. Are there any other committee members that did not speak? Oh, Representative Callie Pitts, the doyen of the committee. I'm sorry.
Representative Callie Pitts. I represent Portsmouth Wards 1, 2, 4, and 5. I've been on the committee for 25 years. I'm still learning. I hope to learn more. I hope to do more. And I hope to bring back some collegiality to the community and to the committee. And I wish to welcome Representative Lewicki. Thank you. You get stuck with me and you'll find out that I'm a little bit of a pain, but I kind of know what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I took the opportunity to do the attendance with that. It's all done.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Fred didn't mention when he introduced himself that he serves as the committee clerk. Representative Doug Thomas, who's the vice chair of the committee, will be here probably within the hour. He had, his wife had a doctor's appointment that he had to take her to this morning, but he will be here. And I trust that other members of the committee, such as Representatives Mcgee and Oxenham, who will be presenting our first bill in 6 minutes, will be here soon as well. And John, I want to apologize to you, John Lewicki, Representative Lewicki. I should have welcomed you to the committee right at the very first thing. I forgot to do that. I apologize. But I want to say now, welcome to ST&E. We're glad to have you on board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No apology necessary.
Okay, next item on my agenda is just a quick outline of what today's agenda is. We have 5 public hearings today, 2 this morning, then we'll take a lunch break at around 11:30-ish, whenever the second public hearing finishes. And then at 1 o'clock, we have another one, 1, 2, and 3, so we'll have 3 this afternoon. That's a total of 5 public hearings today. 4 of those bills, the last 4, are all early bills, meaning that they have to be done by the 17th of February. So that's one of the reasons we're hearing them today, to get those public hearings done so that we'll be in a position to pass judgment on those bills sooner rather than later. There is a 5th early bill that the committee needs to hear, and it will be the first bill that we hear a week from today on the 18th of January. There will be no executive sessions today, so no one has to be concerned about a lack of attendance at our meeting here today. Now, going forward, I've already scheduled, although most of you probably haven't seen it yet because I don't think Carrie Morris, our committee admin, has published the schedule yet. I've already scheduled the remaining bills for the committee. We will have 4 additional meetings, just like today's, where 5 public hearings are held on each day. So the dates are the 18th of January, the 25th of January, the 1st of February, and the 8th of February. So you will see a notice for each of those sessions from Ms. Morris later today, and I decided to schedule all of those public hearings ahead of time as a courtesy to the bill sponsors so that they could plan for when they have to be here to introduce their bill, and also as a courtesy to the members of the committee so that you can all plan your activity around those public hearings. If you need to be out on one of those days for whatever reason, at least you'll know when the bill is being heard so you can make arrangements to find out about it if you can't be here for the public hearing. Now, because we finish our public hearings on February 8th, we'll be able to proceed to subcommittee meetings and/or executive sessions starting on as early as February 14th. You've all noticed that we're in a different room this year than we have been in past years. That accommodation was made because the 2 committees that ordinarily share this room both had a heavy bill load, whereas the 2 committees that share our previous room, 302, 304, had relatively light legislative loads. So by swapping one of the heavy load committees with one of the light load committees, it'll make scheduling this room easier. We share this room with election law. I've worked out with Representative Barbara Griffin, who is the chair of election law, that we can have this room on Mondays and Tuesdays. And election law will have it on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we could start having either subcommittee or executive session meetings as early as February 14th, which would be the Monday after our last public hearing. We won't make a decision about that until after we have our final public hearings. It could either be on Monday the 14th or Tuesday the 15th that we have executive sessions on the early bills because they have to be done by the 17th. So that's our agenda for the next 4 weeks. Representative Callie Pitts.
Mr. Chair, for the public, can they still sign in on their preference on the bill? Like we have the blue sheets here. Can they do that remotely? In other words, if I'm in favor of a bill and I'm at home, can I still sign in to that bill at home?
That's an excellent question, Representative, and I do not know the answer. I'm sorry that I don't.
I can answer that.
I think you can do it, but I'm
Yes,
not
it's the
certain.
same process as.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. Same process as last year, apparently. Okay, follow up?
would it be possible to just briefly describe that process so anybody listening at home could do that if they wish?
It's been a long time since I've done it, but as I recall, you click on a link on the General Court website, you specify the name of the committee, then you pick a bill, and then you just follow the screen prompts to allow you to record your opinion about the bill.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else have any clarification to add to that? Okay, good.
I have a comment.
Representative McWilliams.
Thank you, Chair Bose. I just wanted to say that it's also possible to email the entire committee at the House Science, Technology, and Energy at, oh boy. Can you hear me now? It's possible to email the entire committee. I believe the email address is House Science, Technology, and Energy, all one word, at, oh boy, leg.state.nh.us. Leg, state, NH, US, with a period in between each one of those. You can find that on the website as well, but you can reach us via email to all the members of the committee.
Thank you, Representative. Good point. That's the way we've always been able to communicate with the committee via that method. Wow, Representative Mcgee, you just made it. Thank you for being here. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Representative Somcich.
Can I just inquire about executive sessions? Am I assuming that there won't be any until after February 14th?
That's likely the case. There may be an extraordinary circumstance that requires us to have one sooner, but my plan right now is to wait until after.
The only reason I'm asking right now is that if for some situations we need a substitute because they have to come in here in person, it would be good to get a heads up on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Agreed. Okay, before we start our first public hearing, I just want to go over some rules and logistics for the operation of the committee. Those of you who want to speak on a given bill at its public hearing must submit a pink card, such as the one Representative Plett is holding aloft. They are on the back table back there. You fill one out and either bring it up to Representative Plett or pass it up along the table to Representative Plett. You can't speak unless you submit a pink card. Depending on the number of people who sign up to speak on a given bill, we're going to limit speakers to no more than 5 minutes. We're also going to limit questions from members of the committee to 2 questions per member per speaker. And I'd remind members that we're here to gather information in public hearings. That means ask questions, do not make speeches. You're not here to debate the people testifying. You're not here to debate each other. We're here to gather information that we can use later to deliberate and make decisions about these bills. There's plenty of time for debate in subcommittee meetings and/or executive sessions. So be very careful and be very sensitive to the fact that you just need to ask questions. And if you can make your questions as succinct and precise as possible, you'll probably get a better answer. If you ask a long, rambling question, the answer you get may not be particularly useful. So think about that as you put together your questions. So Representative Mcgee, welcome. We had a little committee introduction earlier, so when you sit down to introduce your bill, if you would like, you could tell us who you are, what district you represent, and an optional brief comment about your service on the committee. And so, at 9:34, I believe it is. No, it's actually 9:30. That clock is fast. I'm going to open the public hearing on House Bill 1285 relative to the multi-use energy data platform. And I'm very pleased to have the bill be introduced by a longtime member of this committee, the Honorable Representative Kat Mcgee. Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Representative Kat Mcgee, and I'm from Hillsborough 27, which is Hollis. And I've been on the committee, this is my second term. And in my first term, I had the good fortune to help pass a bill that came to us from the Senate for the review of whether the state of New Hampshire should have an energy data platform that would allow us to be able to see, use, and manage our energy data. So, bit of an esoteric project, but my background is in software engineering, program management. So it was actually, it's a software project, and so I stayed with the project. I was invited by the consumer advocate to intervene on the docket at the Public Utilities Commission. And so I followed it over there, and as the pandemic hit in the first year, we went online with our technical sessions, and about 34 interveners started working on discussing all of the aspects of the statewide energy data platform that were defined in the statute when the bill was passed and signed into law. And one of those aspects was privacy and security, which was, of course, a big concern for the utilities. They have an obligation to protect consumers' energy data. And so the original statute, RSA 78:51, assigned the determination of the data privacy and security to the Public Utilities Commission process. And that bill was signed into law in 2019, and the adjudicative proceeding went forward with all of the stakeholders, including all of the utilities, henceforth in 2020. And we all went forward with a unanimous settlement agreement to the two then commissioners this past spring. So what happened was, when there was a decision to add a Department of Energy, which I think is a great idea, the statute in HB2 that was written, the 80 pages that was delivered to define the practices of the Department of Energy, along with how it would interact with the Public Utilities Commission, it ended up giving that requirement for the data platform to the Department of Energy. But so the new statute, which came under RSA 378:52, is now in conflict with the existing original statutory language. And the efforts to define those technical pieces, it's already occurred at the Public Utilities Commission with all of the utilities. So we had all the technical expertise, and we undertook what we were told to do based on the original RSA. So this is sort of a reinvent the wheel requirement that was put into language in HB2, and we just want to correct that. I guess that's it.
Okay, thank you, Representative Mcgee. Can I ask you one quick question?
Sure.
Does this change apply to rulemaking? Is that why it's necessary to make this change?
No, it's the technical aspect of determining the standards around how security and privacy will be administered. So that had to be defined, and that was one of the things that they wanted in the original language to make sure that it was fully vetted. So, yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with rulemaking.
Okay, so the definition exists where, if not in rules?
I think actually the consumer advocate who is here to speak as well may be more familiar with that piece than I am. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Representative Notter, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking the question. You said you were for the Department of Energy being formed?
Yeah.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Follow up.
You also said it was an addition, but wasn't it really a combination of other agencies and departments to create one?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The Department of Energy was a combination of other agencies to create one rather than several different groups.
I don't understand. I think the Department of Energy is devoted to energy, and we had hoped that there would be such an agency to play point on questions around energy policy so that we'd have somebody to consult with. Because it's a big sector of the economy, and I know when the data platform went in and I was trying to help shepherd that, I was concerned with the technical piece of the project not being lost because most of the people that were involved in trying to pass it were non-technical. But one of the things that I argued was it has no home in the state, right? There's nobody to own it. And, if there's going to be a platform that is statewide, then somebody at the state needs to understand it and be able to have, decision-making capability on that. So, so I had, at the time, mentioned the fact that it would be really nice if we had a Department of Energy to go to for decisions around that. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, because I still don't understand. You're saying a bunch of agencies? Yeah, well, the Public Utilities Commission is a regulatory body. That's the distinction, really, that's made between them and the agencies which fall under the executive branch. And so I think when I read through the 80 pages in HB2 that defined the Department of Energy, one of the things that was told to us when we saw those presentations was there's going to be a bright red line between the regulatory agency and, the Department of Energy. And so I would still maintain that they're two different animals. It's not really a combination of those two agencies. It's that the Public Utilities Commission budget is now going to come under the Department of Energy. So they'll be administered from within the Department of Energy, but it wasn't really, I don't think it was intended to be a full merging of their duties because they're separate.
Follow up, Mr. Speaker?
No, I'm sorry. We're restricting questions to 2 per member. Thank you, Representative. Any other questions for Representative Mcgee? Representative McWilliams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Mcgee, can you just speak a little bit further to the language in this bill that says there's going to be a qualification and registration process? Can you tell me who's setting that up? How is that administered?
I think the language before that, thank you for your question, Representative McWilliam. I think the language before that qualifies a third party, and the 15 months of conversations that we had around how this platform would go forward if in fact it's approved after there's an RFP, was that it would likely be outsourced rather than have the technical resources within the utilities building it. So we would be giving them, highly defined requirements, which we produced during that process together. And the third-party vendor would then have to prove and vet the level of standard that we've defined in terms of security and privacy of the utility data. Not just the utility data, but that's pretty much the prime source is utilities.
Thank you, Representative.
Sure.
Thank you. Representative Platt?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. You are choosing to change with this bill 378-52-2 from Department of Energy to Commission to resolve a conflict. The other way you could have resolved the conflict is to take where the conflict occurs and change that to the Department of Energy, so it's entirely in the Department of Energy. Why did you choose the PUC rather than the Department of Energy?
Well, the way I described it in the testimony I wrote, which I didn't read, is that it's a question of reinventing the wheel, because the case has already, the adjudicative docket, right, where all of the stakeholders were working towards the answers to these solutions, coming up with solutions from the original bill that was passed. It's already been done. So the folks at the Department of Energy don't have the benefit of any of those 15 months worth of discussions with the technical people from the utilities. And so the conversations around what has to be done, what this is doing is it took the language from the original statute and just switched it over and said somebody else needs to do it. But it didn't take into account the 2.5 years in between where somebody was already doing that. So it doesn't make sense to put it the other way, because the original statute is the one that's already been followed. So we don't need an exploration for how security and privacy should go forward, because the utilities have already provided that information. It already exists.
Representative Somsich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Mcgee. I just want to verify that I heard your presentation correctly. You were talking about a need for someone to own this platform and have a home for the platform. Do I understand correctly that that ownership and that home would be the PUC?
No.
Or is it the Department of Energy?
Well,
And your bill here, as stated here, talks about the secure environment and privacy standards established by the commission. So does one agency establish the privacy requirements and the other one owns it, or the same entity owns it and gives it a home?
No, thank you for the question, Representative Somsich. It's a good question. I think the platform itself, if it ends up going forward, would likely be under the purview of the Department of Energy. I think that would be where the oversight would come from. The definition of getting us to the point where we had requirements to send out for an RFP, that was the complicated part, was hashing through, what are we building? What will it do? What are the benefits? And until we had all of that definition, we couldn't really ask somebody to price it, because it's a software project, so they have to tell you how much it'll cost to build. And I'll just say this so that you guys can be informed of this, because it matters. The utilities agreed with us that the correct architecture for the project was an API of APIs. And what that means is that there would be a processing unit that would be in between the data that they hold and the data that gets aggregated and goes out to the person who's making a query of the system. So basically, it's a very nimble, agile system, and it's not really expensive to build the architecture that way. So we did a lot of the pre-work in order to save the state money. There was no cost, really, to that adjudicative proceeding. And so the adjudicative proceeding forced all of the stakeholders to come together at their own expense and try and get us to the starting point. And so what we're saying is that language that made the charge of figuring out how privacy and security should be done still needs to remain consistent, that it was part of the adjudicative proceeding and is not something that the DOE has to reinvent now. We just don't want it to say, because then somebody will feel they have to do something because it's in law, right? So it's just, they're inconsistent.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one follow-up.
Sure.
Can you again state for us what actually the purpose and the goal is of having a energy data platform?
Sure. I don't know if anybody's heard, but data's kind of king right now. And a lot of the sort of downstream management of energy in the future, especially with all the different types of energy sources there are now, will be governed by who can see the full picture of what's happening with energy. We like to say, we have a saying that we would use, which is you can't manage what you can't measure. And so the energy data platform is to move the state forward so that we can have that snapshot and be able to aggregate data in a way that makes sense so that we can look at for example, community power. You know, if folks who are doing something together want to be able to see a picture of what they're doing, they can't really get that now. It's very, very cumbersome and clunky, and you have to go back to the well with the utilities again and again to try and get your own data. So we were really just trying to open that up so that the data can be used in order to make improvements. And again, that doesn't cost anything, but it will save us in the long run.
Representative Berejny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Mcgee, for taking my question. If this bill doesn't pass and the Department of Energy, will they be recreating all of the same information? And if they do that, are they able to reuse what was produced by the commission? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I think the point of the language in the bill, which actually came from the consumer advocate, in our discussion that there was an inconsistency in what was in, what was in statute by the passing of this section of the bill. I think the Department of Energy, as it is right now, doesn't have the kind of proceeding that we pursued over at the PUC. The PUC is kind of uniquely set up to host these kinds of meetings. In order, I mean, we had several, maybe 8 or so, 8-hour technical sessions. And that's just not something the DOE would likely undertake. So I guess to answer your question, if it goes into law this way, there will be confusion because the DOE will feel as though it has a requirement to do something to achieve this. Could they use the information that's already been provided? I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, it would make sense to. But I just think we're just trying to clear up the confusion in the statute, that it's not consistent with itself, that there's 2 existing statutes that say 2 different things. And I just wanted you to know the background of the fact that the first statute created a process where we responded to what we were told to do. So it isn't necessary to say, now the DOE has to tell us what to do. They don't really have to do that. And I'm not sure they have the people to do it either, because they were technical, security considerations.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question as well. We received written testimony that says that on May 5th, the parties went before the commission to present a settlement agreement, and so far the commission has failed to issue an order in the docket. Does this change affect that settlement agreement? Does it affect the docket? What impact will making this change have on what's going forward as of today?
It shouldn't have any, because the new language for the new statute came from HB2 and affects the platform which was implemented back in 2019 in terms of moving forward with the adjudicative proceeding. So it shouldn't have any effect if we move this in to clarify the information. It is kind of an issue that the PUC hasn't come up with a decision since Cinco de Mayo, but which was a very happy day for all of us. Never seen such kumbaya with everybody involved. However, I mean, I think there's been a pattern over there of delay, and also, there's been a bit of upheaval. There's been changes in personnel, and they haven't had full complement. So I think regardless of what is going on with the Public Utilities Commission and their decision, the extent of the detailed requirements that have been developed, we developed user stories, which are the more sophisticated level, and also had many, many discussions with the technical people and security people of the utilities. So I don't see any problem with, no matter which way it goes at the Public Utilities Commission, that work has already been done. That's the way I would say it.
Great, thank you for clarifying that point. Representative Callie Pitts.
Thank you for taking my question. I was concerned a little bit by this is what we were told to do. who and where. And on this type of security information, is this personal information? Is this kilowatt hours used? Is this, because kilowatt hours, as I understand it, is reported regularly. So is this personal information we're talking about?
The intent of the data platform is to allow us to aggregate data information, so it's not related to the individual customers at all. It's the idea of being able to look at data that you want to see combined, basically. So no, the personal information, that's part of the privacy standards and considerations that we worked through, yeah. So, I mean, that's the people from the utilities who have, you know, frontline responsibility for securing that data were the people who contributed the solutions that came out of that process, so. I think they understand, you know, they understand both what the tool is intended to do with energy data and also the privacy concerns for the individual customer that have to be protected. So all of those conversations were what we were doing for 15 months.
Follow up?
Okay, again, I'm going to ask who was doing this? Who told you to do this? And is this data already in fractured form available from other places? Data is a broad-based word. Is this available? Again, are we going to kilowatt hours? Are we going to, you know, time of use?
Yeah.
And all that is that all available in the different utilities? And is this an effort to just combine this and put it all together?
It's a good question. Thank you for the question, Representative Callie Pitts. Who told us to do it was the passing of the bill. So the statute that was passed, 37851, the original statute, was who told us what we had to do, what we had to satisfy. So that's who told us to do it. The us would be the people who joined in as interveners on the docket to engage in the discussions around solving for the things that the law told us we needed to satisfy. And so that included all of the utilities. And they were very generous in supplying technical resources for those conversations. And as far as where the data is, it's actually, we had testimony on that, that there are some towns that are more, you know, aggressive in trying to either convert to cleaner energy sources or invest in unique things. Getting their energy picture means, we had testimony actually from someone who's engaged in that work in Hanover, I believe. And what she said was, we pulled together all of our data from the utilities, got it in a spreadsheet, managed it, you know, created macros, did all these things to create the picture. And then they realized it took them 6 months to do it. And the next time they wanted to look at it, it would take them 6 months again. So it can be done, but in an information age where you can have, you know, systems do that kind of combinations for you, it just doesn't make any sense for us to have no way of getting the data that we're trying to get. And so we're trying to really just advance the state's ability to look at what's happening with energy across the state. And then you can make better decisions from there because you then have the information that you need available.
Okay, thank you. Representative Callie Pitts, remember to turn off your mic.
Good questions.
All right, any more questions for Representative Mcgee? Seeing none, I thank you, Representative, for your testimony. And I will now call on Griffin Robarge, who will represent the Department of Energy. And he's asked for 2 minutes. He's neutral on this bill, but would like to take a few minutes to speak about it.
Can you hear me okay? Yes, all right. Good morning, Chairman Vos and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Griffin Roberge, and I work for the New Hampshire Department of Energy. Here to testify today on House Bill 1285. Based on conversations with staff within the department, it appears this bill is a technical fix to state statute. As the prime sponsor already indicated, there was a bill 2 years ago in 2019 that created this platform, that's Senate Bill 284 for everybody's reference. Given that the department was created through the budget trailer bill last year, HB 2, there are a number of changes throughout statute for the department. This appears to be something that was changed, removed the original commission reference on line 6, replaced it with the Department of Energy, and the bill is looking to move it back to commission. Like I said, the department kind of believes this is a technical fix, as the PUC has already commenced in a proceeding on this, and for the record, that's DE 19-197. And they've already, I believe they also have a settlement agreement that was filed with the PUC in April of last year, in 2021, containing a section on platform security and privacy standards. The PUC held a hearing on the settlement agreement on May 5th of last year. However, it has not, there hasn't been an order issued by the PUC yet. At this point, the establishment of the privacy standards is pending before the commission in the form of the settlement agreement. I know this seems like a technical fix, but I think the department would like to at least take a quick glance at the whole statute holistically, just be sure that there aren't any other changes that need to take place, little housekeeping measures. Again, given the separation of the PUC and the Department of Energy in the budget, they just want to make sure that they capture all the necessary changes that need to take place. With that, I'm willing to take any questions. On a side note, I started with the department 3 days ago, so I might not have answers to everything, but rest assured, I will try to get you an answer as soon as possible. And with that, I conclude my testimony.
Mr. Roberge, and my apologies for mispronouncing your name in the
No,
beginning.
do not worry.
Representative Thomas is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question. This is truly a clarification question. What year was SB 284 associated with, just for my records?
Yeah, so that is, I believe it was introduced in 2019, signed into law in the same year.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Representative Bernardi is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Roberge, if this change is not made, does the DOE have the ability to use the information that's already been set into motion by the PUC and go forward as is?
Representative, that is a very good question. I would love to get back to you on that one. I will certainly follow up with you as soon as possible on that one.
Representative Platt is recognized for a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Robarge, you said you want to take a holistic look at the statutes to make sure that nothing's missing.
Sure.
That's great. When?
Yeah, so
We have an exec coming up on this bill.
No, and I understand from Representative or Chairman Vosa's comments today that there isn't going to be an exec session today. But yeah, that's my understanding. But certainly like to get back to the committee as soon as possible. I don't want to necessarily give a timeline or overpromise anything. But obviously, we want to get you guys an answer sooner rather than later.
Representative Notter is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking the question. Being the new kid on the block, did you know that the Department of Energy was a combination of the Office of Strategic Initiatives and the Public Utilities Commission, and the idea for that combining came from the governor's office?
Yes, I do understand that, and just to answer a little bit of your question of the prime sponsor earlier, I believe the PUC is administratively attached to the Department of Energy, but doesn't get involved with, well, obviously participates in various dockets and that type of thing, but doesn't have like a leadership role in the PUC or anything like that, I should say.
Representative Lewicki is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is not just to Mr. Roberge, but to all of the people testifying and providing clarification. Could you please send all of those to all of the members of the committee, and please try to reference the RSA so that we can do our homework?
That was my intention, to send it to everybody up here. Yep.
Okay, Representative Somsich is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Roberge. You just answered a question from one of my committee members here who asked whether the Department of Energy could, even without this change, use that data to make changes that are needed. I would like to add on to that request to say, can you tell us what is the most effective way of making those changes? There's always a workaround of everything, but it may not be the efficient way of doing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for, yes, Representative Berejny?
Thank you, Representative Rose, Chairman Rose. My question is there somebody already in charge of running this project or implementing this system? And would they be knowledgeable about all of these issues in the bill?
Thank you for the question, Representative. As I mentioned, there is an active proceeding before the PUC, and there are a number of parties involved in that, including the PUC, and the utilities as well. I'm sure there might be others to speak after me in terms of where the proceeding currently stands. As I mentioned, there's a hearing on a settlement agreement, but it has not yet issued, the PUC has not yet issued an order. Can certainly try to get you a status update as to, how that proceeding has been going and provide you a link to the docket as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions, I should say, for Mr. Roberge? I have a comment. The Department of Energy deserves congratulations for hiring Mr. Roberge because in his previous role as an aide to the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, he demonstrated a level of detail that was superb and a knowledge of energy matters that was also superb. So I think the Department of Energy did a good job by hiring Mr. Roberge. Thank you for testifying this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Okay. We'll now turn to our next presenter. And I'll ask the consumer advocate, Don Crease, to come forward and give us his testimony on this bill. And I will say, good morning, Mr. Crease. It's wonderful to see you again.
Likewise, Chairman Vose, it's great to be with all of you today. My name is Donald Crease. I am the consumer advocate. By statute, my job is to represent the interests of residential utility customers. I wrote down what Representative Callie Pitts said because the same thing applies to me. She said, you get stuck with me, but I kind of know what I'm talking about. The data platform statute originated with a request that I made to Senator Fuller Clark back in 2019 to introduce a bill to create such a platform. And the reason I made that request is, and this is consistent with what Representative Mcgee said, access to data is really important to consumers. And when I say access to data, I mean data about their usage of energy that they are able to share with third parties that are unregulated, so not utilities, that provide consumers with services that allow them to save money and become more active and engaged users of the grid without necessarily spending a lot of time on it themselves. The data currently reposes in the back end of the systems that utilities have, and what the platform will do is provide a ready source or a ready go-to place for that data, and you as a consumer can authorize a third party to access that data, and that third party pings the platform, gets the data, and provides you with services based on the data. And I agree with Representative Mcgee that that is a key element of providing benefits of the transition to competition for electric, natural gas utility customers. Back in 2019, this bill got to Governor Sununu for his signature, and it was one of only 2 energy-related bills that he signed into law and did not veto. And I think that says something to all of you, or should say something to all of you, about the importance and the non-controversial nature of this initiative. There were questions about ownership of the platform. As I originally drafted the bill, I was going to propose having the Public Utilities Commission actually operate this platform. This was before there was a Department of Energy, so I couldn't suggest having the Department of Energy do it. But in the preliminary discussions with the Public Utilities Commission and with the Department of Information Technology, it was suggested to me that it would be better to have this data platform live in the private sector. So what we did in the statute is actually task the utilities with developing and operating the platform, but the idea is that they would be subject to some oversight so that they don't do that in a self-interested way. So the statute told the PUC to open an adjudicative proceeding. It did that, and there was a remarkable bit of very intense collaboration and cooperation amongst all the stakeholders. I went into that process with a great deal of skepticism. I came out of that process really excited. I heard Representative Mcgee call it a kumbaya moment. It was one of probably the most successful effort at collaboration I've seen in the 5 years that I have been a consumer advocate. As a result of that, we entered into a very comprehensive settlement agreement. We filed it on April 21st of 2021. As you heard, the commission conducted a hearing on May 5th of 2021, and I would say respectfully that the settlement agreement, to which there was no opposition, has languished at the PUC since then. So just yesterday, with the agreement, I think, of all the major parties to the docket, I sent the commission a letter requesting an expedited decision, and I actually offered to write their order for them. I used to write orders for the PUC for a living back when I was the general counsel of the PUC, so I know how to do it, and if they need that kind of help because they're very busy and very resource challenged, I'd be happy to do that for them. I agree with the Department of Energy and Mr. Roberge that this is a technical fix. My perspective on the bill is that it paves the way for expedited or efficient approval of the settlement agreement by not introducing any confusion into what the process is from getting to where we are to where we need to be. So the reason to do the bill is to basically allow that settlement process to continue to go forward. The settlement does not automatically lead to the development of the platform. What it leads to is the creation of a platform governance council that will develop a request for proposals. The RFP will go out. The responses will come in. We'll figure out what this thing will cost, and that's where the rubber will hit the road. I think that's all I have to say, and of course I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you for that illuminating testimony. I have a quick question before I open it up to the rest of the committee. You stated that there is an open docket about the settlement agreement before the PUC. It's been open since May 5th of 2021. My question is, do you have any assurance that this change isn't going to disrupt what's already seems to be a languishing process and make it worse, or will it make it better?
I think it will make it better by clarifying that the process that led to the settlement agreement and the process in the settlement agreement can go forward. And just to correct the chairman slightly, the statute, which was signed into law on September 17th of 2019, told the PUC open an adjudicative proceeding within 90 days. And the commission did exactly that. It opened the proceeding in December of 2019. I take that reference to 90 days to be a legislative judgment that this should go forward as expeditiously as possible. It took a long time because there are a lot of technical issues for the various stakeholders to come to agreement, but now that they have, I'm a little frustrated that it's taking the commission so long to approve the agreement. One thing you might not know is that New Hampshire has actually been recognized as the national leader when it comes to developing statewide platforms like this. Our friends in the state next door, Maine, actually adopted a statute based on ours. They told their PUC to issue an RFP, and that has happened. So Maine, I regret to say, has sort of leapfrogged over New Hampshire. And for that reason alone, not only should you pass this bill, but you should all write to the PUC and say, hey, PUC, time to issue an order. Get Don to write it.
Representative Callie Pitts.
Mr. Crease, Mr. Crease. just a clarification for me, please. Are you in favor of the change to commission rather than Department of Energy? Because that's what this bill is doing.
Yes, I am in favor of
You
that
are.
change. The Department of Energy is intimately involved in this. It morphed from the staff of the PUC, which was intimately involved, and so I have no shortage of faith that the DOE, the Department of Energy, will be up to its neck in this, regardless of what happens to this bill.
Follow up?
Yeah, that left me kind of like, they will be involved, but you would rather have the entire process in the hands of the commission, because that's what this bill does.
Yes, and that means that the commission can say settlement approved, go forth and issue your RFP. And at the back end of the statute, the commission gets to determine if the costs of the platform would be unreasonable relative to the benefits. And that authority in the commission didn't change as a result of House Bill 2 last year. So it would clarify that the path to that approval by the PUC is still clear and as it was originally intended.
Thank you.
Representative Platt, did you have a question?
Yes, yeah, assuming this passes, do you imagine 3 or 4 years from now that the responsibility would shift back from the PUC to the Department of Energy?
It's possible. I think, the platform will get up and running and we'll see how it works and what tweaks need to be made to the way it operates and the way it's governed. And it might make sense in 3 or 4 years to re-examine that and take what hopefully will be a pretty non-controversial little bit of public service and vest oversight in whichever agency is best capable of doing that.
Representative Thomas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking my question. I apologize for asking this question a little bit late, but when your first words, you made a statement that opened the door to this question I'm going to ask you. When you said that the consumers would be able to grant a third party access to their data, could you specifically tell me what do you mean by that? What type of data? Do you mean just their total kilowatt hour usage in total, or are you talking about something that goes into more detail? What type of data would the third party have and be able to tell the consumer?
I'm talking about data in more detail. And the more sophisticated we get in terms of the metering that we have our utilities doing, the more granular the data becomes and the more uniquely tailored to your needs at your home or business, the data, the services can become. And so, yes, the answer to your question is yes, I'm talking about detailed data. And that's the reason that there are very strong privacy protections in the statute, because this is New Hampshire. We are hyper concerned, as we should be, about privacy. So there are protections in the statute to make sure that your data will not be shared, your individual data, unless you grant permission to the platform to specifically share that data with that specific third-party provider.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the follow-up. I'll try not to use up my follow-up question by maybe making a comment and then ask my follow-up question. I was looking for something more specific than just, yes, more detailed in terms of maybe so in other words, they would be able to tell you when and what appliance you're using at any one time. And my follow-up question would be, so therefore, if you wanted to contact the third party and say, hey, I just bought a new hot tub, how much electrical power am I going to be using based on make, model, year, wattage, and so forth? Or does the consumer have to do his own math?
Platform would yield the kind of data that would help some third-party provider help you. You can go about your business as a lawyer or an architect or a farmer without thinking about it all day. Or if you happen to be all three of those things, then all the better.
You're picking on me. Thank you. That's very helpful for a concrete example.
Okay. Additional questions for Mr. Crease, Representative Callie Pitts?
I'm sorry, but I'm a little foggy this morning. Would a customer be able to access their own data information and not have to go through a third party?
Yes.
And-
And the reason I didn't stress that is that it's interesting and maybe informative to you as your consumption is, but it's even better if you can share that with a third party for all the reasons I've already given.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you, Mr. Crease. Just I'll follow on to her comment by pointing out that I'm a customer of New Hampshire Electric Co-op, and the co-op offered me an opportunity to buy a small device that I could put into my electrical panel, and that device would track the usage for every appliance in the panel. And it provided a phone app that I could use to look at, for example, how much I'm using my furnace and how much I'm using my pump or whatever. And it was not too expensive, maybe around $250 or so. The only thing that prevented me from buying it was that the utility wanted me to share that information with them, and I wasn't comfortable with that at the time, so I did not buy it. But those devices are available, and there is a way for customers to see exactly how they're using their electricity.
If I might just, could I just respond to that briefly before you move on to Representative Plett? The co-op would want me to say that you're a member of the cooperative, not just a customer, meaning you own a slice of the utility yourself along with your fellow customers. Unfortunately, the co-op is not part of the data platform collaboration at present. It can opt in if it wants to. That was included in the bill. I hope to entice the cooperative to participate in the data platform. But in the meantime, the New Hampshire Electric Co-op, because it's customer-owned, has typically led the way in terms of utility innovation. And if you happen to live in their territory, you're lucky, as Chairman Vose is, to be a member.
Representative Plett.
I just wanted to say I'm not interested in sharing the hot tub because I'm usually in hot water anyway.
Thank you, Representative Plett. Remember, we're here to gather information and ask questions.
Not provide too much information.
All right, thank you. Whoops, looks like we have one more question.
Yes, thanks for taking my question. That's so I really get a good handle. We've referenced smart meters a couple times here. But smart meters are not in wide usage as of yet. Would a bill such as this, the information that we would gather from a smart meter, make it even more imperative that we do have certain privacy assurances enacted?
I think the answer to your question is yes. I heard two things. One, it is true that we're not as fully deployed in smart meters as we ought to be, and so we are busy nudging all of our utilities, especially a really big one whose name I won't mention, but whose initials are Eversource, to fully implement smart meters. But as your question implies, as the meter gets smarter, the privacy implications become more profound, and that's the reason why, or that is a reason why we need to be very vigilant about privacy.
Okay. Any other questions for the consumer advocate? Seeing none, I will thank the consumer advocate for his testimony.
Thank you.
Great to see you here this morning. We have one more person who would like to testify, and that is Kelly Buchanan, who represents Clean Energy New Hampshire. She submitted written testimony, so I expect that her oral testimony will be a brief summary of that written testimony.
Yes, it will. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Kelly Buchanan, and I am the Director of Legislative and Regulatory Affairs for Clean Energy New Hampshire. I did submit, unfortunately, kind of lengthy testimony for you today, so I will let you read that on your own. But I just wanted to come before you and let you know that we support House Bill 1285. We were a party to the settlement agreement in the docket that looked at establishing a process to create this energy data platform. And what the previous testimony before me has said is true. It was truly a collaborative docket. It's probably the best one I've ever been a part of, to say the least. And insofar as the commission feels any sort of heartburn regarding this confusion in the statute, we would like to see it resolved by using House Bill 1285 as a vehicle. And this would ensure or help prevent any sort of further delay with adopting the settlement agreement in this docket, which went a great deal further in establishing a consensus agreement on really quite strong privacy and security requirements that the utilities felt comfortable with, as well as the advocates. So I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. I also wanted to bring before you a very simplistic example of how the data platform could currently be used. The opportunities to utilize the platform are a bit endless, frankly, but say, for example, you're a business owner and you're interested in having an energy audit and some weatherization services provided. You could contact, for example, one of our members, Resilient Buildings Group here in Concord, and say, oh, I'm really interested in having you take a look at my building. Well, the first thing they would do, much like when you go to the doctor, you have your blood drawn and they take a look at how your body is functioning, is that Resilient Buildings Group would go and ask the utilities to access your energy data. As a third-party service provider, that process has been really challenging. It could take several weeks, perhaps months, to get that data from the utilities. So this data platform would really resolve a business problem, and it would make it easier for customers to access what is already theirs. So with that, I would be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you for that testimony. Any questions for Ms. Buchanan? Seeing none, I'll thank you for your testimony this morning, and I will close the public hearing on House Bill 1285. We'll take a bio break until our next public hearing at 10:30.
Only if you authorize that.
that they do so in a
Put together that study, and I'm happy to dig that up and send it around.
Okay, thank you. Representative Notter is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking the question, Representative Wilhelm. Could you please repeat the name of the commission you said you chaired?
It's the, and I'll send around this report too, it's the final report of the commission, but it's the Commission to Study Career Pathways from Full-Time Service Year Programs to Post-Secondary Education and Employment Opportunities in Support of New Hampshire's Future Workforce Needs. It might have more words than the number of members of this commission that we're proposing, but it did some effective work.
And follow-up, Mr. Chairman?
Follow-up.
I'm holding all the current commissions right here, the list of them. Have you done the math to see how much each commission costs, especially with like 20 people, when you add up mileage, staff, the light bill, et cetera?
No, do you have a number for that?
Not.
Okay.
Okay, Representative Somsich is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank
Representative Somsich, I just learned something about how this system works. I tried to turn off Representative Plett's microphone, and I accidentally turned off yours. So I apologize for that.
But I can't do that to you, right? So.
As much as you might like.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Wilhelm. When I was still a teenager, I must say I was very much inspired by President Kennedy's Peace Corps call to young people back then. And as we all know, there was a huge boom in young people getting involved, making the Peace Corps a ambassador for the country in other countries. However, today I got to say, it seems to me that many people in this country, and I got to say I was born in a foreign country, but many people in this country don't seem to think that they have any obligation to serving their country at all. And so I want to ask you, Representative Wilhelm, because this is kind of, I've always felt this way, that would you agree with me on the need for a concept where national service should be something that everyone does in this country, not just some?
I thank you for the question, Representative. You know, I'm not for mandatory national service, but I am for providing incentives to people to stand up, raise their hand, folks who are inspired for whatever reason to serve their community and their country, which is, you know, very much what we were looking at with the commission that wrapped up its work last year. And if I might, I will say that the reason that I joined AmeriCorps to serve as a civilian national service member was because of the terrorist attacks on 9/11 and the call to service by the President of the United States to join both the military and AmeriCorps. And I thought that that was a way that I could serve, and that's why I decided to do it. So I think these opportunities are important to the social fabric of our country and brings diverse people together from all different backgrounds and walks of life from all across the country. And I think it's important that we do everything we can to encourage and promote those types of opportunities to build national character.
Follow-up.
Well, I know that your bill before us is for a commission, and the civilian corps is not a mandatory issue. But considering that it would be not too much to ask every citizen in this country to do something, why shouldn't national service be mandatory?
It's a good question. I think, you know, I think we would be better for it if every citizen found something that they could do. I mean, that was President George W. Bush's challenge to the country, which was everybody should take a year or two of their lives to serve their country and their community. So, you know, I believe in figuring out where in any American's life they can do that. I think by virtue of us all being in this room today, we are doing that. We are serving our communities and our country. And I think national service provides another opportunity to do that.
Representative Jackie Cali-Pitts.
Representative Wilhelm, thank you for your bill. I'm confused about a couple of things. The things that you seem to think or say that this commission or this climate corps would do, it seems to me that there are many individual towns and cities who have a very similar type thing, not age required, and have those in action, and they are, for the most part, volunteer. So would this type of commission augment what's going on locally? It seems there's momentum building locally. Would that take it away from that, or would this augment it?
Thank you, Representative, for the question. This would augment it. I think more than anything, it would identify additional funding sources from the federal government that could go to support programs that are happening at the state and local level. You'll see that the Municipal Association is included as one of the members, in part to make sure that all municipalities across the state understand opportunities to take advantage of that kind of funding and start programming. I think about a park that is in my neighborhood, Stark Park, and there have been a series of rail trails that have been built out and connected over the course of the last couple of years by community volunteer groups that are doing their own fundraising. I also know that the Student Conservation Association that's based at Bear Brook State Park, which is a big supporter of this Civilian Climate Corps program, they helped out in a similar effort down in Nashua to build out trails, serving alongside community members and providing additional expertise, and a hard, great work ethic. These are projects that are happening in our communities. There is a backlog of projects in a lot of communities, and this is an additional resource that New Hampshire could take advantage of if we put together a smart strategic plan to submit it to the federal government.
Follow-up?
My follow-up would be that the conservation corps that you refer to in here was started in the 30s after the Depression because there was no work. We put people to work, and we did marvelous things. The people, I wasn't in it, but the people who did it did marvelous work. Today, we have the opposite effect. We have very low unemployment and lack of employees. So how would something like this affect that situation? Because that's a very real situation right now.
It is. Thank you for the follow-up. I think that a lot of the work that the commission worked on was focused on the future and thinking about what kind of skills employers are looking for. I think aligning these core programs, national service, with workforce development skills so that they can be employed and have the skills to enter the workforce in these high demand careers. That's a key part of this. So these are 1 year stints for the most part. They're between 10 months and 12 months. And there are even some seasonal ones that are great programs for college students to participate in during their summer breaks. And again, the idea is for it to be workforce development so that it leads to good paying jobs that employers are currently lacking in the workforce.
Representative Mcgee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Wilhelm, for your testimony today. I'm just looking at a section of the bill, I guess it's just section 1 under duties, where there's specificity listed here of the duties of the commission to shape, launch, and sustain New Hampshire Civilian Climate Corps program aimed at conserving and restoring public lands and waters, bolstering community resilience, which is a pet interest of mine, because I think there are a lot of things going on in terms of changes in New Hampshire that are unaddressed because we just don't have the resources. We don't have the infrastructure in terms of state government to help with those, because I actually live on a pond, a great pond, and I test the waters every year for the departments, you know, of environmental services, water protection folks. So we already employ a lot of civilians, but this section goes on to say bolstering community resilience, increasing reforestation, increasing carbon sequestration in the agricultural sector, protecting biodiversity, improving access to recreation, and addressing the changing climate. And what I like about I know it's a long list, but what I like about it is, from a scientific perspective, you know, on this committee, we listen to a lot of bills that are energy specific in terms of climate. But biodiversity is another huge aspect of what's changing everywhere, but also here. And so I wonder if you could just say something about the breadth of this work. Like, this is a volunteer corps who are going to be examining really complex issues in terms of what's changing within the state. So could you talk a little bit about how you see, I understand the idea of getting the state involved so you can leverage the federal dollars. That makes total sense to me. Bring more money to us so we can do something about the things that are happening. But bolstering community resilience, can you tell me what you mean by that? Like, how would my farming community be affected if this bill went into place and these people started to work on coming up with, you know, what New Hampshire should be doing?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, this list came from recommendations by America's Service Commissions and the Service Year Alliance. They interface regularly with AmeriCorps and made state-level recommendations for states that wanted to get a head start on this. I think what's important is, and the reason that they've advised creating these state advisory commissions is so that every state can custom tailor, you know, the activities of their core members to focus on high need, high impact issues.
Yeah.
That may not be an issue that New Hampshire, you know, of the list on the, you know, the menu may not say, hey, this is high priority for us. But again, I think the list of commissioners is designed to figure out which of those issues are most important.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Representative Thomas is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. First, a comment. I want to congratulate you and say I'm encouraged when you say that we need to get back to young people getting a national character established. I think we've gotten away from that, and I think it's encouraging that young people are thinking that we need to establish back to our roots for how we came as a country and why we did, and get back to that essence of having a national character of what it is to be Americans. That being said, one question I have, which is in your testimony, not in the bill, but on your second page, you talk a lot about what this volunteer organization could do, and a lot of it seems like it may already be done by for-profit industries here in the state. So my question would be, do you see a conflict in what this agency that you want to form would do in terms of how it would affect our for-profit businesses that are already doing a lot of these things that are being done now, and how that blend together, how that mix?
Great. I thank you for the question. I think it's important that you know that it is in federal statute that national service members cannot displace employees that are already doing this work, and that's across the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. So, you know, to be in compliance with federal law, it's going to be important for this commission to look at needs that are not being met by private industry, by, you know, the state and by nonprofit organizations, but that are maybe on the wish list of things that they would really like to be able to get to. And again, look at it through a workforce development lens, so that, you know, they're putting these core members in positions where they can build the skills that they need to then go on and work for those for-profit companies, or for the state, you know, or for nonprofit organizations.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the follow-up. And this might be a naive question, but do you see this organization being volunteer, and we have many volunteer organizations in the state, do you see this volunteer organization becoming, or is it intent to become, a type of a lobbying group?
No, so that's another thing that you should know about AmeriCorps and Civilian National Services. When the Corporation for National and Community Service, the federal agency that oversees these programs, was created, it was put into statute. A couple things. I mean, I'm actually thinking of a long list of things that might be helpful for this group to know. One, it's intentionally bipartisan. The board of directors of the federal agency are appointed by both majority and minority parties in Washington, D.C., so that there is that bipartisan support for the programs and guidance. Sorry, can you get back to what your question? Oh, it was about lobbying. And no, and so that's something that is strictly prohibited by AmeriCorps members. I mean, otherwise, you know, there'd be a room full of AmeriCorps members who'd say, yes, we want to expand these programs. But that's not the case. So I appreciate the question and know that there are safeguards in place to prevent that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we ask more questions, I just want to point out that Representative Mcgee, you came in a little late, so you didn't hear our opening discussion. But one of the things we talked about was that we're here for information gathering, and if you ask crisp, succinct questions, you'll gather more information than if you ask long, rambling questions. So I just ask you to be mindful of that. I have a couple of questions for you as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can I just say, I have another bill hearing at 11:15. I'm happy to come back later if that's helpful. I'm also happy to give them a heads up that I'm running late, or maybe we could ask someone to go let them know that I'm running late here.
Well, that clock is 5 minutes fast. So,
oh, that's perfect.
It's only 11:07. How far away do you have to go to testify?
Go down one floor.
Just down one floor, okay. Let me just ask you a couple of quick questions then. Your testimony mentioned Climate Corps pilots across the country. Where do these pilots get their funding?
They're currently funded by AmeriCorps in part, but they also leverage those federal dollars with local investment. So there's a federal match requirement. Part of the brilliance of the modern national service movement is that there is a public-private match requirement. When I was serving with City New Hampshire, we were based out of Timberland's corporate headquarters in Stratham, and that contributed towards the program's match requirement.
So, as a follow-up, if there were any of these Climate Corps pilots started in New Hampshire, the funding source would be AmeriCorps, is that correct?
That's correct. So the Student Conservation Corps is a great example of that. It's the, and there's also a Lakes Region Conservation Corps as well that does similar work, I think, on a seasonal basis.
Okay, Representative Wilhelm, I want to really thank you for your testimony. Thanks for introducing this bill and all the hard work you've put into it. I'll let you go so you can go testify on your other bill. Just thank you again. We look forward to talking to you again.
Great. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
We currently have no more pink cards that have been submitted by people to testify on this bill. Are there any? Is there anyone else who would like to testify? Representative Partial? No. Oh, okay. Just going to turn off the microphone. All right. Well, seeing none, I guess we will end the public hearing on House Bill 1419A as introduced. And I had originally planned a relatively long lunch break from 11:30 to 1 o'clock, but it looks like we're going to get an even longer one. So everybody enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you back here at 1 o'clock. And I will start promptly at 1 o'clock. So thanks.